Hello, hello. And Anne has been waiting in the wings, eager to get started. So we'll jump straight in. She's going to be talking about collaborative test automation with Yest and Jira. Anne's going to introduce herself, so I'll leave that up to her. This is the last talk in the track, so keen to hear your thoughts and have a good Q&A after this session. So over to you, Anne.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the nice introduction. Yeah, I said I hate waiting. We made the technique check of the technique a quarter of an hour before, and still then I'm getting more and more nervous. My name is Anne Kramer. I'm from Germany. I work for the company called Smart Testing, and today I want to show you how to do a collaborative test automation with Yest and Jira. So maybe to start, I should say some words about Smart Testing. Smart Testing is a French tool vendor. It's really a software product vendor and only a software product vendor. The complete name of the company is Smart Testing Solutions and Services, but the services are services around the tools we sell. The name is also the message. All the tools Smart Testing develops are intended to make your testing smarter or testing smarter. Smarter meaning more efficient, so that you better catch bugs, but also more easy to do, less painful and nicer. So Smart Testing has been around for a long time now. In 2015, the company got completely reorganized, and afterwards they concentrated rather on the French market. So if you know Smart Testing, you probably know the old Smart Testing. Since then, they have completely redeveloped the product portfolio, and there's one tool which is Yest, which is also the topic of this talk, or with the core of this talk. Not really the topic, because the topic is collaboration, but the core of the tool support. It's the tools track. Yeah, what I want, I should introduce myself too. I am from education. I'm a physicist. I have a PhD in physics. Then I started as a software developer in France, but I'm German. I sit here in my home office in Erlangen near Nuremberg, so in the south eastern part of Germany. And in my beginnings, I was a software developer, but not very long, not a very long time. So my Java knowledge is a little bit. That was the beginning of Java, and then we came back to Germany, and I worked for a service provider mainly in the medical domain. But the topic was always testing from the beginning, because even as a developer, I developed a testing tool. So that's why I have more than 25 years of experience in testing now, and I worked for more than 20 years for this service provider. It's called ZMed, but we will probably not know it. It's a small company. And then finally, last year, I decided to change once again, because I'm not that old. At least I do not feel that old. And I joined Smart Testing, and there I'm a global customer success manager. Global means everything but France, and customer success manager means that I help our customers to understand the tools, to use the tools, to get productive with them. Okay, so far for the company and for myself, what is the topic of my talk today? I want to speak about how we can improve collaboration in our teams, in our mainly agile teams. I mean, most companies want to go agile, or have performed the agile transition, and they say they are agile, and they are more or less agile. But there are several problems we observe in being agile. One is that especially in larger companies, we still have hierarchies, organizational structures that persist. For example, if you have a larger company, you may have an IT department, and in the IT department, you have the developers, and you have those who can code, and those who know well about unit testing. But those who really know how to use the product, those who do the system testing and the acceptance testing, not meaning the acceptance testing of individual user stories, but the acceptance testing more in terms of validation of the product, they sit in a different part of the organization, and they, in general, they cannot code. They are not. They speak in workflows, business processes, or whatever you name them. They talk about business rules and how the user works with the product. Whereas the developers, they speak about code, and they're sometimes quite far away from what really happens, what is really the usage of the product. This is one of the problems, and especially the fact that the ones speak code and the others not have already existed in the past. And the answer to this is behavior-driven development. So in behavior-driven development, we have two aspects. We have the aspect that it is an acceptance test-driven development approach. So an ATDD approach where you specify your system by specifying scenarios that serve as acceptance tests, as acceptance criteria. Usually you do behavior-driven development with a given when-then scenario, and that works quite well for user stories. The second challenge we face is complexity. Again, especially when your organization is larger, you have a complexity of your organization. This is also a form of complexity. Well, the response for that is usually that you have a scaled approach, scaled agile approach, but then you have different teams, and you have this collaboration problem between teams. Each team concentrates on the features that they are part, and the view of the overall system is not necessarily very clear to everybody. In particular, in addition, the overall system can also be very complex. So we can have different parts, front end, back end, talking to each other, and how do we deal with this? Well, we also have an answer from the past, which is visualization. The entire unified modeling language was designed to make requirements engineering easier, to make communication easier, documentation easier. So this is the second challenge. And the third challenge, you all know quite well, is simply lack of time. Lack of time, especially for the developers or those or the test automation engineers, which in a sense are also developers. I mean, they have similar skills. They can code. They are very rare, and they have to develop the product, or they have to develop the automated tests, and everything and anything we can do to get a little bit less charge, them a little bit less charge, to remove charge from those people who really have no time at all is welcome. And the approach in the past was keyword-driven testing. Keyword-driven testing means that instead of talking about real functions and codes and looking at test scripts and having a look at the commands and try to understand what the test script does, we have the same people that speak business workflows and business rules, and they specify the test scripts, which will then be automated using action words and parameters. Because everybody who can write a test step, open browser and go to URL ABC will also understand that the keyword open browser takes two parameters, which is the browser type, maybe Chrome or Firefox or whatever, and that the address is probably the URL. Only the problem with keyword-driven testing, if you really write the test scripts as a series of keywords, is that it looks like code, and it becomes quite similar and not very easy to understand. And we have, again, the problem with the complexity. And that's, if you take all the advantages or those solutions and put them together, you come to what we call visual acceptance test-driven development. And this is the basis for collaborative test automation. So in the beginning, you have a visualization of what you want to do. What you want to do, not in the system, but in the tests. It is an acceptance test-driven development approach. So the test scenarios serve as a specification of the system. They provide additional details on user stories, or rather on how the user stories are put in order and how they depend on each other. So we are the figure you can see here is not on user story level, it's more on features or epics level. And this figure is the basis of communication and collaboration. It is drawn very early in the process. It is shared in some tool which is available and accessible to anybody in the project. And for agile teams, this is in most cases this is Jira, but this can also be somewhere else. In our case, it's Jira. So this the entire process starts with drawing scenarios like the one you have here. This is a shop. I had something like Amazon in mind. You go to the website, you select in the category. You know, in Amazon, you can select and search only in books or in films or music or games or all. Then you to perform your search. This is a bit more complicated. That's why it has a sub-diagram. Then optionally, you can set a filter on price, on availability, or whatever. If you are unlucky or you do not find anything that pleases you, then you abort. Otherwise, you put the order. And in the end, of course, what we probably want to check is the price. So this is the logic. And with the comments, you can see you can add already many information. And this is what the three amigos, so the product owner, the developer, and the tester, take as basis of communication. This is how the developers know what is expected. The system is expected to do in a whole. What the testers know, this is what I should test because this is what the system is expected to do. But once again, we specify the tests. We do not specify the system nor the user behavior, but they are quite close, of course, because we want to test what the users do. This is, as I said, acceptance test-driven development because it's specification through scenarios. The next step is then that we use a model-based testing approach, meaning that we can put information here in, you have those small e's here. You can put more information on what you really want to test to each action, and then you use a test case generator to generate your test cases, or rather, and if once you add the keywords you can also generate test scripts. So what I will show you in a moment in a live demo is first you have the visual representation of the workflow in Jira or in Yest. Then you add the information on what you really want to test in form of decision tables, which reflect the rules, the business rules. Then you perform automated test case generation, giving you test scenarios like the one that's shown here, which is an insurance example. Then you can publish your test cases into whatever test management tool or test execution you want to have. And you will see Yest is even more. Yest is also a development environment for testers. I will not focus that much on this aspect because I have not enough time to show everything. But you will see there are quite a lot of little features that help you writing your test cases. Okay, I will show you how this looks like. Well, the story starts in Jira. In Jira, we have there's an add-on on which you can get on the Atlassian marketplace. You just type Yest. By the way, to remember the name of the tool, it means say yes to test. Yest. So you type Yest in the marketplace, and then you will get an add-on called Yest for Jira, which is free of charge. And what the add-on does is it creates a new issue type called Yest workflow. And the Yest workflow can be viewed, but also edited here in Jira. So theoretically, the product owner starts and says, well, this is how I would create an acceptance test, what I expect the tool to do, or the product to do. This action first. This is the example I will follow now. So it is an application for managing credit requests. So you are at a bank, you work at a bank, and you get a request for credit, and whether or not the credit is granted depends on quite a lot of things. I mean, it makes a difference whether you ask a credit for a washing machine or for a car or for a house. Also, it makes a difference whether you are an unemployed or you work for the state, or you are the student or retired, whether you have already problems, have had problems in the past paying back your credits, and so on. So those are the check credit data and the check customer data actions. So the credit itself cannot, we do not grant credits for houses, for example. The customer should be in the database. If not, we have to create it before we can proceed. Then we check the customer data. Is the customer eligible for the credit? If not, we stop here. If yes, the person will get the contract. That's the easiest part. Maybe in the future, in future sprints, we will have more difficult with the. You have to meet the agent, for example. But in the simplest case, you get the credit. There's a contract. The contract is archived. So this visualization, this workflow is synchronized with Yest. Yest is a desktop application, and it runs on the computers of the testers. And so I can for example, show that I can make a change. Something like the product owner wants everything that there will be a new user story. When I save that to Jira, and I go to Yest, after a while, it doesn't check all the time, but I can force it. There's an orange bubble that appears here. That a newer version of the workflow is available. So I can pull this newer version, and it tells me, well, there was a change. This is the command to do. I can accept that and validate it, and I have my to do here. And similar, if that's a very oversimplified example, but I change something here in the visual representation in the model, then I have an advertisement or a warning that the workflow has been modified locally. I can upload it to Jira, and when I go to Jira, I refresh in Jira. The Jira workflow is here. It reads done. And this, of course, this does not only work with commands, but oops, sorry, but also I have to edit first. But also if you add new tasks or whatever, it's a nice small editor you can try. As I said, it's an add-on to Jira, and it's free of charge. This is important that this visualization is in Jira, or is in the tool, shared in the tool everybody has access to. Because as I said, this is really showing you an overview of the entire system, or at least of the feature. And it links several user stories. It links the user story for the credit data, for the customer data, and so on, and so on. Now we said that it's a visual ATDD, so acceptance test driven development, meaning that I'm writing test cases. I have the scenario telling me what to do in which order, but I do not yet know what I really want to test. So this is the tester's task. The tester, they have Yest, and for each of those of those actions, they can specify what shall be done here. So in the easiest case, for example, contract signature, this is very easy. There's also just a test step that there is a contract signature. But usually things are more difficult. And for example, if you go to check customer data, you will see that our system is not very kind because you can only get a credit when your age is between 16 and 70 and you are an employee. Students won't get a credit, retired persons won't get a credit, and if you are older than 70, then anyway you will not get a credit. This is the decision table we put behind. As you can see, the test step itself is already parameterized. I mean, I speak of test automation, but we have this the step of specifying what we want to do, specifying, in fact, manual tests prior to writing the test scripts, at least if we want to do it in a structured, specified way. So what I do as a tester, I think of well, okay, what are the cases I want to test when it comes to whether the customer is eligible for a credit or not. And there are two ways to do it. One is I really think in terms I have ISTQB certified tester foundation level. I think in equivalence petitions, I sit down and here to the left part, I have my data. We call it design data because this is what this is the testers world, whereas the implementation data is the developers world or the test automation engineers world. So customer validity has only two equivalence petitions, valid and invalid. But the occupation, for example, may have more than just employee, retired, and student. For example, I may add a value like self-employed. Employed. If I do it this way, then Yest tells me that by just not highlighting, by making it gray, that self-employed is a value for the occupation, which I thought is important to test, but I have not yet referenced it wherever in my decision tables. So this is why I call it the development environment for testers, because developers, they have the compiler telling them that they declared a variable without never ever using it, or even used a variable without declaring it. This cannot happen here, because if I write my value here, no, sorry, I have to be here. If I write anything here, then Yest will declare it. But let me show you when I use the self-employed here, and I started typing here. I start to type check, which is logical because the others are all called like that, and I get auto-completion. Auto-completion with two possibilities in this case, because those are the occurrences of CAHE currently in the project. Check credit data. No, that's not what we are talking about. Check customer data. Yes, that's what we are talking about. So I select this and I get exactly the same text as here. This is great because manual testers write their test cases by filling in those decision tables, and they already write the test cases in a similar way and parameterized, because each step here is the same. The only difference is in the values here, in the input and in the output values. So to complete my my example, self-employed do get a credit, let's say, and but only if they are between 16 and 70. In a moment, I will show the test case generation. And to have nice speaking test case names, I have to tell the tool what the aim of this column is. The aim of this column is to check the self-employed credit applicants. There's another column here, which is helpful afterwards in Jira, which is the user stories. The user stories come from Jira. I mean, I declared my, not I, my product owner declared user stories in Jira. I have to go here and exit the full screen. You have the user stories here, for example. This is, they are really very easy because it's only for a demo version, but usually you have your, as a user, I want to obtain something. To get done, and yes, I do not want to do any copy paste. I just connect to Jira and I can import them different ways. I can also import other issues if you do not work with user stories, but rather with epics or features or tasks or however you invented your own issue type. You can import this one. You also can concentrate on those that are topic of the current sprint, for example. And then you, in my example, it's not there are not so many. And I have one here. I can see I have not yet used. Nowhere, because this is the valid customer. I only have the invalid customer here. So this user story applies here and here. And this is how I link my tests to user stories. We will see in a moment that in Jira, this information will, or in whatever test management tool you use, this information will be available. So next step is to generate my test cases. First, I check whether my workflow is fine. I do this because I modified it, just not to run into a problem in my demo. And now I generate my test scenarios. By default, Yest is configured in a way that we generate the least possible test cases with a maximum of coverage. Coverage meaning that we want to cover each row in those decision tables. This is, I mean, it's a model-based testing approach, but it's slightly different to other model-based testing approach, or rather different. It's a lean MBT approach because we do not write. The model is just the highest level, and then afterwards in the decision tables we really focus on what we want to test. We do not describe the entire system behavior. We just write what we want to test, and so each row in the decision tables we wrote is something we want to test, and therefore it should be covered. I generated my test cases here. So I have now 6 test cases. I have one more than this morning because I added a row to my my decision table with the customer data. By the way, all the other actions also have, if needed, they also have decision tables, and you can also redirect your path because you do not want to have illogic test cases. So if the logic is important, you can tell that yes, to continue with the signature contract or not, or whether it's to stop here. So the test cases, they look like this, and they are pretty fine for being executed manually. I can then, no, maybe just for the collaborative aspect, shouldn't skip that. Once again, back in Jira, when we have a look at the workflow in Jira, you have those small e's. The small e's, that they are exactly what we have in the decision tables in the tool. So this is also shared information, and this is a very important part of this ATDD philosophy, because here we specify all those special cases which we want to test and which we also want to get implemented, and that somehow sometimes slip through, especially when you concentrate only on exploratory testing. You cannot edit them in Jira, but you can. So do not be disappointed if you use the add-on. But you can, when you have a project in Yest, you can synchronize it. This was the old version because I haven't pushed yet to Jira my changes. Okay, I pushed the once, so you saw it, I think you believe me that it will work a second time. Now, how do I get my test cases from Yest into my application lifecycle management tool or into my automated test execution tool? For that, you have to create publishers. So we have quite a lot of publishers, and if yours is not in, you should tell us. And if it's really important, we will add it. But we have quite a lot of publishers. Some of them are very popular in France, for example, like Squash. I've never heard about Squash in Germany before starting to work for smart testing. Tosca is quite popular here, and but as you can see, the choice is really large. So if you work with Jira, you may have Cepheid Scale or X-Ray, and I, for demo purpose, I created a publisher for X-Ray. So I have to connect to X-Ray, but this I did before we started the presentation. I have to tell the publisher which test cases shall be part of the which test cases I want to publish. Well, in this case, it's not very difficult. I want to publish all of them, but I get a warning here. I get a warning because it tells me that there are data missing. The data, this is an aspect especially for test automation. The testers think in the equivalence partitions. They think in age below 16 or in adult age above 18, for example, child and adult. But the system itself will probably need a birth date as input parameter. So for your test automation, you would rather have the parameter of birth date. And this is where the implementation data comes in. The implementation data is our data that are required for the for the concrete test cases. So we have the date of birth and the duration. Before I said the duration must be between 16 and 20 months, but now I really want to know how many months the credit shall be granted and so on. And those data I can set here in Yest. I can, for example, say everything that's related to the customer. And here I do the translation between the age, the occupation, which were the terms the testers used, and the name and the date of birth, that which are what the developers or the test automation engineers need. So this is how we can put them together, because John Smith is a student in the database. And I don't want to deal with the huge Excel sheet, so I cut this down. For the credit, for example, we had the duration, we had different equivalence partitions for duration for the type of good. For example, there will be credit for no credit for phone, but we can get credit for appliance. But the appliance can be a hairdryer, a microwave, or washing machine with different month of duration. So here I get a data-driven approach in too. So what you can see, we will try to combine the best of everything. Only when you combine, you need some help, and the help here is now how do I get the data that are useful for the test execution, manual or automated, that really fit to what is defined in the test case. This is a hard work to go through the test cases and to think about, okay, this corresponds to John Smith because John Smith is a student and so on. We did this mapping once in the tables, and now we tell Yest generate a data set combination. So either just one or all possible combinations. You can see this is quite a lot of data, quite a lot of combinations, because we have all the browsers with the different customers that fit and the different things that they can can really ask for the credit for. You can also see here that we have a problem with our scenario we just defined, because we do not have any self-employed in our database. When I publish this to X-ray, I will just show you, because I want to show the test execution in a moment. So I'll just show you the test cases. I exported to X-ray before starting the talk. This looks like this. Here you have the credit data, the customer data, contract signature, record contract. And now if you start a test run and you add the test cases from the test set, my test cases here, and then you execute them. I set them rapidly to pass and fail, for example, just to have some data. And I go back to the workflow. I can see the execution coverage. Yep, execution coverage. Only it doesn't load. No X-ray test execution found. This is interesting. I mean, I executed the test case. That's really always when I do a live demo. Okay, it's not, I executed the wrong test cases. I attached the wrong test cases. In fact, I chose the wrong existing tests. Take ACE. Let's take this one. ACE. Selected. And well, let me just pass and fail this one. And I reload. Yeah, you can see which tests have already been executed with which result. So this is also very helpful for communicating and collaborating when you have your test results in Jira. Now, this what I showed was manual test execution, but I wanted to talk about test automation. Well, to automate the test cases, I have to publish them to a test automation framework. For example, let's say Selenium. I like Selenium because it's native Java, and that's what I still know. So I get a warning here. I have my test scenarios. I created the publisher. I did the parameters, but I get the notification, and the warning is that I do not have a dataset combination. So we'll do the same, but this time only with one. And once again, we see here that we have a problem with the self-employed because we don't have this in the data set. The scenarios themselves, the keyword mapping is done here. So for each table row, or for each row in the test scenario, I can add one or several keywords. And the keywords, they simply come from an Excel sheet, which is extremely simple. It just says a keyword and then the parameters. So this is very easy. And when I add here, probably the list will be much longer. Therefore, I type check, and then the list is becomes shorter, and then I can select my keyword. I do this once for this row check credit data, and for all the scripts that use this row, this will become green because it's the same keyword, and only the parameter values changes. So once again, this addresses the problem of lack of time. The manual testers may help in writing the test cases. You can also specify tiered setup and tear down scripts. And last but not least, what I want to show you is how you can execute those tests. But for that, I have to switch the project. because I do not have test execution environments for all my demo projects, and I wanted to show the simpler demo project. So here I also have this publisher, and I publish my scenarios. My scenarios are now in a Git repository, and I have them here in my environment, and I execute, I run them. This is an example for a web-based application. So here we have the keyword open browser, which is executed. Now the internet struggles a little bit. Then the script fills in the values. It presses simulate and checks whether the value was okay. And yes, the test case passed. I did not show the example because it's it's nicer with the credit example, but that's what I wanted to show, and how the collaboration works. And as I said in the beginning, this is Smart Testing is a French company, so therefore they have quite a lot of French customers. And just to show you that I'm not talking something. A small isolated solution. The references we have are quite nice. Okay, I think my time is over. Even have 1 minute more. I stop here.
Yes, we have some questions.
Okay, so
the first question is, from your experience across all of the clients, how much additional time the PO or requirement engineers needed to add these flows with the user stories? Do you have feedback from how much time, created flows paid back at the end, decreased numbers of issues, better coverage?
Yeah, we have a nice document called return on invest, and I even have a slide I skipped. It's very nice you asked me to present this slide. What we really I did not show it because it's so commercial. It's we measured that during the test design phase you gain 30% of productivity, and 50% during maintenance. And if you take into account that test design is not everything in the test process. There's also test execution, test management, and so on, and test reporting. Then all in all, in total, we get around about 20% of time you save. So it's not that much that you spend additional time, but there are two things that are important to keep in mind. One is the workflow and the tables, they serve as documentation. So you spare time with the documentation. In that case, you get a better understanding of what happens. This is difficult to measure, Vector, but the second thing is if you have to use the test case generation part and also all those nice IDE features, because then it becomes attractive to change the tables and the workflow, because it's much easier than to maintain your huge amount of test cases, or even the small amount of test cases. But so this is why it works. And this is also the difference to other MBT approaches who struggle always with maintenance of the model. Because in other MBT approaches, you write the model, you invest your time in the model. It is very helpful in the beginning. You get a better idea of what to do. But once you have your test case, it is easier to change the test cases, and then the model starts being outdated and finally is left apart. But in our approach, it is attractive to keep the model up to date because you spare time maintaining your test cases. Those are features like propagating changes. If I change something in my table, then I click on propagate the change, and then it is changed in all tables where the same text is used, in all scripts, in all test cases, and I exported them again to wherever, and I have the updated test case. Hope
Makes
that
sense.
answers.
Yeah, I think so. Um, the second question came during the talk, and so I think you may have covered it already. But the person said, you mentioned that these examples are at epic level. I guess they were asking at a more granular level, like the story level, would you advise against using these models?
Well, stories are, but if you work in Scrum, for example, and if you have short sprints, then the story is probably not longer than 2 weeks or maybe 4. And so the complexity of the story is in itself limited, which is one of the ideas of user stories, to break down the system into handleable and manageable parts. The approach works or the benefit you get using the approach and the tool is highest if you have complex rules. It's more the complexity of the rules of those decision tables than the workflow. And my first example I wrote when I started in April for work for smart testing, I had to get a mobile phone contract. And I went to the website of O2, and I discovered that there are 4 different entrance points, 4 different URLs, of 3 different ways of three different ways of showing how to get my contract, but the workflow was always the same. It's enter whether you're a new customer or an existing customer or self-employed. Then select your mobile contract, select the duration, and then you may also add a Netflix, medium, large, small, medium, large, or nothing, and then finally you go to pay or to conclude the contract. This was always the same. So the workflow was completely linear, but the logic behind is very difficult because you, as an existing customer, you do not pay for the first connection. As a self-employed, you get a bonus. As a young person, you also get a bonus, but it's different from the self-employed. As an old person, 60 plus, was it called, you cannot get all the contracts. Self-employed cannot have a limited duration. They always have to take it on a monthly basis. Retired persons too. I don't know why. So this is where Yest is good. When you struggle, because you have business rules and user stories where the value was set in one user story, but it's important in another user story to determine how the behavior is. That's why I would say it's more on Epic's level.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Cool. So I think we are wrapping up now, and this is the last talk in the tools track. So I guess people are heading over to the keynote. But thank you very much, Anne, and thank you all for attending.
Yeah, just one last word. Do not hesitate to contact me. My email is very easy, Kramer@smarttesting.com, but be aware that smart testing has only 2 T in total. It's not smart testing, it's smart testing. I had trouble with that in the past. That's why I insist on telling people. So I would be glad to hear from you or to get in contact on LinkedIn or wherever.
Amazing. Thank you so much.